Hey guys, tonight we're reclining elegantly onto a marble chaise lounge in ancient Rome, not the polished Hollywood version with dramatic lighting and everyone looking like they just stepped out of a luxury shampoo commercial. I mean the real Rome, the sweaty, sandal-chafing, olive oil-scented empire, where even the party planners carry a wax tablet and mild existential dread. Because yes, tonight you are stepping into the surprisingly administrative, deeply bureaucratic, and faintly sticky world of a Roman orgy planner. Not the glamorous title you imagined when you were filling out your high school career aptitude test. No one ever circles option C, event coordination, for elite decadence. So before we unfurl the velvet curtains of history, to take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy drifting off to the logistical nightmares of ancient civilizations. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. There's something comforting about knowing that somewhere, someone else is also falling asleep while learning about imperial catering disasters. Now dim the lights. Turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum. Settle into your blankets. Adjust your pillow like a Roman senator adjusting his moral flexibility. Let your shoulders sink. Let your jaw unclench. If your phone slips onto your face, that's just gravity reminding you that you are not, in fact, a god emperor. And let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to organize a dinner party where half the guests might attempt to poison each other? Have you worried about seating arrangements so delicate they could trigger a political coup? Do you struggle to get 4 adults to agree on a pizza topping, let alone orchestrate an evening of elaborate Roman excess involving senators, poets, professional entertainers, imported wine, and at least one extremely judgmental philosopher? How do you source 200 amphorae of Falernian wine without accidentally bankrupting a province? Who handles the toga dress code? What happens if the host's rival shows up wearing a slightly nicer laurel wreath? And perhaps most importantly, who cleans up afterward? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in Rome. The year is 58 BCE. The Republic is wobbling. Julius Caesar is climbing the political ladder. Your sandals are already dusty. And you, my friend, are late for a planning meeting about tonight's entertainment. Take a deep breath. The empire isn't going to decadently collapse itself. You begin your day not with a trumpet fanfare, but with a wax tablet and a list. Because despite what modern imagination suggests, Roman elite gatherings were meticulously organized affairs. Private banquets, symposium-style drinking parties, and occasionally more indulgent festivities required coordination. Musicians, cooks, enslaved attendants, wine suppliers, and invited guests all had to be arranged in advance. You are less scandalous and more spreadsheet. If LinkedIn existed, your headline would read, "Facilitating strategic social engagements for high net worth patricians." Your mother in the provinces tells neighbors you work in logistics. Let's be clear, no one in Rome wakes up and says, "I hope my child grows up to manage the reclining order of mildly corrupt senators." And yet here you are. Your work begins at dawn because chaos prefers early mornings. The household steward hands you updates while chewing bread that could double as construction material. The fish delivery is late. One liar player has a cough. The host's cousin has invited himself. You scratch notes into wax, the stylus pressing small, decisive lines. This is your version of answering emails, except the consequences of a missed message may include a duel or a poem about your incompetence. You move through the domus with quiet authority. Slaves, clerks, cooks, attendants pause to listen. Roman households of the elite operated like small corporations. There is hierarchy, delegation, and the constant hum of labor. You are not at the top, but you are dangerously central. If the wine doesn't arrive, if the couches are misarranged, if the oysters smell even slightly ambitious, the blame will slide downhill, and you are downhill. You double-check the guest list, names etched carefully, senators with fragile egos, equestrians with money and something to prove, a poet who never leaves when he says he will. Invitations in Rome are political instruments. To be included is an honor. To be excluded is a message. You are not just planning a party. You are adjusting the emotional thermostat of the Republic. Now pause for a moment. Have you ever tried organizing a family Thanksgiving where Uncle Marcus refuses to sit near Cousin Lucius because of the incident in 52 BCE? Imagine that. But the incident involved legislation and possibly a riot. Seating charts are not decorative. They are defensive strategies. You check supply inventories next. Amphorae of wine stacked along cool stone walls. Olive oil, honey, grain. The cook requests more dormice. You nod with the steady composure of someone who has accepted that rodents are now a catering category. Roman cuisine is refined, elaborate, and occasionally a dare. Your stylist scratches again. Entertainment must be confirmed. Musicians tuned, dancers briefed, recitations timed so they do not interrupt the third course. Contrary to modern fantasy, most gatherings are not spirals of uncontrolled excess. They are structured evenings of display. Status is measured in subtlety. Too much spectacle, and the host appears vulgar. Too little, and he appears poor. You walk a narrow corridor between dignity and decadence. There is also the matter of decorum. Roman society, especially among elites, is bound by expectation. Guests recline in the triclinium according to rank. The most honored man receives the locus consularis, the prime position on the central couch. Get this wrong, and you will feel the shift in the room like a draft under a door. You inhale. The house smells of polished wood, crushed herbs, and faintly of yesterday's garum. It is not unpleasant. It is simply persistent. I like politics. Throughout the day, you coordinate discreetly, messages dispatched, supplies inspected, timetables aligned with military precision. Your role is invisible when successful. No applause, no laurel wreath, just a smooth evening in which no one storms out dramatically. And that is the paradox of your profession. If the night unfolds flawlessly, if wine flows, conversation sparkles, and alliances solidify, you will not be mentioned. The host will be praised for his generosity, his refinement, his impeccable taste. You, meanwhile, will wake tomorrow with another wax tablet, because in Rome, glory is public, and logistics is eternal. You step into the domes at sunrise. The household is already awake. Enslaved workers sweep mosaics, air out linens, and prepare bread in the culinary. The atrium smells faintly of olive oil and damp stone. A fountain trickles at the impluvium. Roman houses of the elite were designed for both privacy and display, part home, part political theater. Today's gathering will unfold in the triclinium, the dining room lined with couches for reclining. You mentally measure space, how many bodies per couch, before it becomes less elegant feast and more sardine diplomacy. The morning light slips in through the compluvium, the rectangular opening in the roof. It lands in a bright square on the floor, illuminating the shallow pool beneath it. Rainwater collects there when the skies cooperate. Today, it reflects only your expression, which is already calculating. Let's walk slowly. The Domes is not a cozy cottage. It is an architectural statement. The vestibulum at the entrance filters visitors by importance. The atrium announces wealth. Beyond it, rooms branch outward in careful symmetry. Every column, every painted wall, every polished surface whispers, "This family matters." You pass enslaved attendants shaking out cushions. The fabric releases small puffs of dust that catch in the light. Someone polishes silver cups with a cloth dipped in vinegar. In the Klein, bread crackles in a clay oven. The smell is comforting, almost modern, if you ignore the background note of garum lingering like a stubborn opinion. It's time to assess the triclinium. 3 couches arranged in a U shape around a low table. Each couch is designed for reclining on the left elbow, leaving the right hand free to eat. This is not slouching. It is a system. Guests are arranged by rank, the most honored reclining at the center of the middle couch. Status determines posture. Posture determines dignity. Dignity determines everything. You stand in the doorway and picture it full. 10 men, perhaps 12, sandals tucked neatly beneath them, tunics adjusted, conversation rolling in waves. Now imagine adding one more guest, because the host decided at midnight that excluding a rival might appear petty. Suddenly, the symmetry falters, elbows collide, plates tilt, political alliances dissolve over a spilled bowl of lentils. You pace the perimeter. The mosaics beneath your feet depict marine scenes, fish, dolphins, intricate patterns. Beautiful, but also slippery when oil drips. You make a note. Extra clothes nearby. Nothing undermines gravitas like sliding toward a senator mid-sentence. Now consider airflow. Roman houses rely on open courtyards and shaded colonnades to manage heat. By midday, the air will grow heavy. Oil lamps will add warmth, bodies will radiate it. You instruct attendants to prepare additional fans, flat, woven instruments designed to stir the air. No one wants to debate grain tariffs while slowly melting. Have you ever hosted a dinner party where the thermostat becomes the evening's main antagonist? Multiply that by the Mediterranean sun and the fact that wool togas are not breathable. You check the side tables where dishes will be staged between courses. Placement matters. Servers must move smoothly between couches without stepping on hems or toes. Enslaved attendants, both often highly trained in elite households, are choreographed like dancers. One misstep, and a tray of oysters performs a dramatic solo on the mosaic floor. Beyond the triclinium, you glance toward the peristyle garden. Columns frame a patch of greenery. Birds chatter. A faint breeze carries the scent of herbs. Guests may stroll there between courses. You ensure the paths are clear. A dignified walk among shrubs is preferable to tripping over a watering jar. There is also the matter of sound. The fountain's steady trickle is pleasant now. Tonight it must compete with conversation, music, and the subtle clink of cups. You test the acoustics by speaking softly. Your voice carries. Good. Discussions of military campaigns should sound intentional, not like a marketplace argument. As you move through the domes, you feel its dual nature. It is a home, yes, but also a stage set for reputation. Every wall painting, every statue in its niche, every carefully placed couch contributes to the host's public identity, and you, quietly, are its stage manager. By the time the sun rises higher, the household hums with readiness. Bread cools, cushions settle, floors gleam, the domes waits, composed and expectant, you take one more slow look at the triclinium. Elegant, balanced, potentially volatile, just another peaceful Roman morning. Let's talk about invitations. In Rome, inviting someone to dine was never neutral. Every name on your wax tablet carries weight. Senators, equestrians, poets seeking patronage. Each invitation signals allegiance. Exclude someone, and you've created a rival. Invite two enemies, and you've scheduled an argument. Social dinners were extensions of political maneuvering. You must balance factions like a human seesaw. It's less party planning, more Cold War mediation, but with figs. You sit at a small wooden table in a side room off the atrium. The wax tablet rests in your palm, slightly warm from your hand. Each name etched into it feels heavier than it should. A dinner for 10 can tilt the mood of an entire political circle. First, the obvious choices. The host's closest allies. Men who have voted in his favor, supported his proposals, when applauded at the correct moments in the forum. They must be included. Their absence would raise eyebrows sharp enough to cut linen. Then the strategic additions. A rising young magistrate who might prove useful next year. A wealthy equestrian with access to trade networks. A veteran general whose loyalty wavers like a curtain in a draft. Invite him, and you flatter him. Fail to invite him, and he dines elsewhere, possibly with someone who enjoys your host's discomfort. You pause. Have you ever agonized over a wedding seating chart? Imagine that, but if you place Aunt Julia next to Cousin Tiberius, they might not just argue about inheritance. They might form a voting bloc. You consider the poets. Poets are delicate creatures in Rome. They crave patronage and attention. Invite one, and he may immortalize your host in a flattering verse. We fail to invite him, and he may compose satire sharp enough to echo through taverns for weeks. Roman satire is not gentle. It names names. You scratch another line into the wax. There is also the question of hierarchy within the invitation itself. Who receives the invitation first? Who is informed by messenger versus personal visit? In elite Roman society, even the manner of invitation carries meaning. A formal call at one's home shows respect. A brief message delivered by a servant suggests obligation. You dispatch messengers carefully. They move through the streets in sandals, navigating crowds, stepping around market stalls heavy with olives and fish. The city hums beyond these quiet calculations. Rome may look chaotic from a distance, but within elite circles, every gesture is measured. Now consider the dangerous pairings. Two senators who publicly disagree on provincial taxation. A tribune known for fiery speeches and a conservative elder statesman who prefers quiet tradition. If both attend, the conversation could spark. Sparks are not always bad. Sometimes tension entertains. But you must decide whether tonight calls for lively debate or polished harmony. You breathe slowly. The host has requested a display of unity. That means careful blending. Enough ideological variety to suggest influence across factions. Not enough to ignite confrontation before the second course. And then there are the uninvited. In Rome, absence speaks loudly. Someone will notice who is not reclining on those couches. Word will spread. Interesting. They will murmur in bathhouses and porticos. Very interesting. You weigh the risk, invite too broadly, and the event feels crowded, unfocused. Invite too narrowly, and it feels insular. Either mistake reflects poorly on your host's reach. This is not simply about numbers. It is about optics. As you finalize the list, You picture the triclinium filled. Each couch is occupied in deliberate order. Conversation flowing, but not boiling. Laughter measured. Alliances reinforced over diluted wine. You smooth the wax with the flat end of your stylus where needed, correcting a name, adjusting a detail. One final glance. Balanced, tense, perfectly Roman. You hand the tablet to the messenger, and somewhere in the city, a rival will receive, or fail to receive, an invitation that quietly reshapes tomorrow. It's time to discuss wine. Roman wine was almost always diluted with water, sometimes warmed, sometimes spiced. Valerian was the prestige vintage, strong, imported, and ruinously expensive. Amphorae lined the storage room like ceramic soldiers awaiting deployment. You must calculate consumption. Too little wine and the guests feel insulted. Too much and someone attempts to recite epic poetry while falling into a fountain. Again, precision matters. You are essentially the sommelier of potential chaos. You stand in the cool shadows of the storage room and consider your inventory like a general studying troop formations. Each amphora holds not just fermented grapes, but mood, diplomacy, regret. Roman wine, unlike the tidy bottles lining modern supermarket shelves, arrives in clay vessels sealed with resin. The taste can be bold, and sometimes sharp, occasionally smoky from the pitch used to seal it. It is not delicate. It announces itself, which is precisely why dilution is standard practice. Drinking it neat would be considered uncivilized, barbaric, something a Gaul might do before charging into battle. You, however, are civilized. Water will be mixed in large bowls called craters before being ladled into cups. The ratio is your quiet lever of control. 1 part wine to 2 parts water is moderate. Stronger blends are possible, but only if you are confident in the emotional stability of your guest list, which you are not. Have you ever tried to adjust someone's mood by subtly refilling their glass with more ice and less liquor? This is that, except there is no ice, and the stakes involve legislation. You run your fingers along the curve of a Valerian amphora. This vintage is famous for its strength. Ancient writers note that it could even catch fire if exposed to flame. Whether that is a slight exaggeration or not, the reputation remains. Serving it signals wealth. Over-serving it signals recklessness. You mark out a sequence in your mind. First course, lighter wine, gentle dilution, enough warmth to encourage conversation without triggering unsolicited speeches about grain imports. Second course, increase richness slightly. Introduce the Valerian at a measured ratio. Allow admiration, watch shoulders loosen. Final stages, taper strength. Replace intensity with abundance. Guests rarely notice when the blend grows milder. They will attribute their clarity to self-discipline. You instruct the cellar attendant to inspect each seal carefully. A spoiled amphora could sour the entire evening. Wine turning to vinegar mid-banquet is the Roman equivalent of a microphone cutting out during a wedding toast. Everyone pretends it's fine. It is not fine. The craters are polished and placed strategically within the triclinium, not too close to the most talkative senator, not too far from the host. Enslaved attendants trained in pouring will circulate steadily, refilling cups with controlled attentiveness. Their task is delicate. A cup left empty too long suggests neglect. A cup refilled too quickly suggests encouragement, balance. The air in the storage room smells of clay, fruit, and faint resin. It is earthy and grounding. You pause, breathing slowly. In many ways, wine is the central performer of the night. Food impresses, conversation dazzles, but wine binds it all together. It smooths insults into humor. It turns rivalry into an anecdote. It transforms suspicion into temporary alliance. It also magnifies ego. You picture it now, a guest gesturing too broadly, nearly toppling from his couch as he insists on recounting a minor military achievement as if it were the conquest of Carthage. That is your margin of error. One ladle too many. So you calculate again. 4 amphorae prepared. 1 reservation. Water is drawn fresh. Ratios set. Attendance briefed. The ceramic soldiers stand ready. And tonight, as cups clink softly beneath lamplight, you will conduct the evening not with a baton, but with dilution. Roman banquets often included musicians, dancers, and recitations. Lyre players pluck soft melodies, while poets declare verses about gods behaving badly. Depending on the host's tastes, more risque performances might occur, but always within the boundaries of what was socially acceptable for elite gatherings. Despite modern exaggerations, most events resembled extended wine-heavy dinner parties rather than constant spectacle. Your task is to curate the atmosphere, too tame and dull, too wild and tomorrow's gossip writes itself. You stand in the triclinium during the quiet afternoon and test the acoustics with a soft clap. The sound travels, but not aggressively. Good. No one wants to shout over a lyre. This is ambiance, not an arena. First, the musicians. A pair of lyre players and a flutist have been secured. Professionals. Discreet. They understand that their role is to weave through conversation, not compete with it. Music in elite Roman settings is background architecture, supportive, ornamental, rarely dominant. You instruct them to keep tempos measured, nothing too lively before the third course. This is a banquet, not a tavern in suburb. Have you ever been trapped at a restaurant where the live band is personally offended that you're trying to talk? That is precisely what you must avoid. Next, the poet. He arrives with a scroll tucked carefully beneath his arm and the fragile confidence of a man who depends on applause for groceries. Poetry recitation is common in elite circles. Epic fragments, mythological retellings, occasionally something flattering about the host's lineage. You advise him gently, concise selections, no experimental meter, no political allegory unless it is flattering. He nods solemnly. You are not convinced. Then there are dancers. In some households, especially wealthier ones, dancers might perform between courses. Their movements are stylized, controlled, often accompanied by percussion or flute. The aim is elegance, not scandal. Despite later caricatures of Roman decadence, elite social norms still carried expectations of decorum. A gathering that strayed too far into excess risked damaging reputations. You remind the performers, refinement, suggestion, not spectacle. Too subdued, however, and the evening risks stagnation. Silence stretching awkwardly between courses. Guests shifting on couches. Someone launching into an unsolicited lecture on road maintenance. Entertainment is a tool. It resets attention. It smooths transitions. It provides conversational fuel. You map out the timing. Soft music during the first course. A brief poetic recitation after the second, when wine has warmed the room just enough for appreciative murmurs. A short dance interludes while servants clear plates, then return to music as conversation deepens. Choreography extends beyond the performers. Servants must move in rhythm with the music, dishes entering and exiting without clatter. Lamps adjusted subtly as daylight fades. Even laughter has a tempo. Have you ever tried to manage a dinner party where the playlist accidentally jumps from classical strings to aggressive drum beats? That jolt is what you prevent here. You also account for the host's personality. Some prefer philosophical discussion. Others enjoy mythological tales heavy with drama. So the few lean toward sharper satire, dangerous territory. Roman satire, when misjudged, can sting. Better to keep humor light and directed safely toward distant subjects. Gods misbehaving are safer targets than sitting senators. As the afternoon light softens, you watch the space transform in your mind. Cushions plumped, instruments tuned, scroll unrolled and ready. The air carries a faint blend of oil lamps and herbs from the kitchen. You remind yourself of the central rule. The evening must feel effortless. Guests should believe the music emerged naturally, that the poet spontaneously offered a perfect verse, that the dancer simply happened to appear at precisely the right moment. If anyone comments on how well coordinated the entertainment is, you have failed slightly. It should feel organic, unforced, invisible. You step back from the triclinium and take a final look. Measured elegance, controlled delight. In Rome, pleasure is permitted, but it is always supervised. Dinner in Rome is eaten reclining on couches, arranged in a U shape around a central table. Guests lean on one elbow, balancing plates precariously. You must ensure proper seating hierarchy. The most honored guest occupies the locus consular is, the prime reclining spot. Status dictates cushion placement. It's ergonomic politics. One wrong placement and someone notices. They always notice. You stand in the triclinium and study the geometry like a battlefield map. 3 couches, and Kalion, form the familiar U shape. The open end faces inward toward low tables, where dishes will be placed and removed in steady procession. Each couch typically holds 3 diners, arranged according to rank. The position closest to the center of the room is the most prestigious. The far edge is instructive, let's be honest. So no one wants to discover they've been assigned the metaphorical folding chair of ancient Rome. The locus consular is that prime reclining spot on the central couch is reserved for the guest of highest status, a former consul perhaps, a rising political star, someone whose favor is currently valuable. This placement is not subtle. It signals importance before a word is spoken. You run your hand over the cushions, testing firmness. Too soft, and a guest sinks awkwardly, struggling to rise with dignity. Too firm, and he shifts constantly, drawing attention. Comfort is strategic. An uncomfortable senator is an irritable senator. Have you ever tried holding a conversation while balancing a plate on one hand and supporting your entire torso with the other? Is now imagine doing that in layered wool while pretending this is the height of sophistication. Reclining dining was borrowed and adapted from Greek customs, but in Rome, it became an entrenched elite ritual. To recline properly signals refinement. To fidget suggests inexperience. You quietly hope none of tonight's invitees attempts to sit upright like a confused tourist. The seating order unfolds with surgical precision. Highest ranking guest at the locus consular is, next, most honored beside him, then descending gradually along the couch. The host traditionally reclines at the lowest position on the middle couch, strategic, not submissive. From there, he can see every guest. Command central disguised as modesty. You double-check the wax tablet. 2 men of nearly equal status, one older, one wealthier, whom to place closer to the center. Age carries weight in Rome. So does influence. You calculate which ego is more fragile. You adjust a cushion slightly to indicate placement. Small details matter. A subtle embroidered edge can hint at distinction. You are arranging wool, but really you are arranging pride. Servants are briefed on approach angles. Dishes must be presented from the correct side to avoid forcing a guest to twist awkwardly. Twisting disrupts composure. Composure underpins authority. Picture it now. Guests enter, sandals removed, togas adjusted carefully before reclining. There is a brief, silent moment where each man registers his position, a flicker of satisfaction or annoyance. That flicker will influence the next 3 hours. You move discreetly as they settle. One man leans too far back, another angles too sharply toward the table. You correct gently, offering a cushion adjustment as if it were pure hospitality. In truth, you are maintaining visual symmetry. Have you ever seen a group photo where one person leans awkwardly and ruins the balance? This is that, but with senators. The physical act of reclining encourages a certain intimacy. Guests face inward, close enough to murmur, far enough to maintain dignity. It fosters conversation, but also scrutiny. Every gesture is visible. Every spilled drop is noticed. Ah yes, spilling. You position small clothes within reach. Wine, even diluted, stains fabric and pride. A clumsy elbow could baptize the mosaic floor in Valerian. Not catastrophic, but symbolic. You step back as the arrangement completes itself. 3 couches, 9 positions, one carefully engineered hierarchy disguised as relaxation. From a distance, it appears leisurely, effortless, civilized. Up close, it is choreography on cushions. And if all goes well, no one will spill anything more serious than wine. Food arrives in courses, eggs to begin, then vegetables, fish, meats, and elaborate desserts sweetened with honey. Garum, fermented fish sauce, appears frequently, lending its powerful aroma to dishes. Roman cuisine was complex and heavily seasoned. You supervise timing, and dishes must flow smoothly. If the dormice stuffed with herbs arrive before the oysters, society might collapse, or at least the host's reputation will. You stand just outside the triclinium, near enough to observe, but far enough to remain invisible. From the culinary, the kitchen, heat rolls outward in waves. Clay ovens glow. Knives thud rhythmically against wooden boards. Someone is grinding spices with a mortar and pestle, releasing sharp notes of pepper and coriander into the air. First course, the gustation. Eggs, often boiled and served with sauce, so olives glistening in oil. Perhaps small salads dressed in vinegar and herbs. Light offerings meant to awaken the appetite without overwhelming it. You nod as a tray passes, balanced, orderly, nothing alarming yet. Have you ever attended a dinner where the host serves something so ambitious at the beginning that you immediately fear for the rest of the evening? You are here to prevent that feeling. Garum, that infamous fermented fish sauce, threads through many dishes. Its scent is potent, salty, savory, unmistakable. To Roman palates, it is sophisticated. To an unprepared nose, it can feel like a coastal breeze that stays too long. You ensure its use is measured, a whisper of flavor, not a tidal wave. The second course begins to escalate. Vegetables arranged artfully, lentils stewed with herbs. Fish, perhaps mullet or sea bass, presented whole and glistening. The fish must arrive intact. A collapsed presentation suggests carelessness. You watch the servants move in careful arcs, avoiding elbows and hems. Timing is everything. Too slow between courses and conversation stalls. Too fast and plates pile up like unfinished arguments. The rhythm must mirror the flow of wine, steady, generous, unhurried. Now we approach mild danger. Exotic dishes signal wealth and refinement. Dormice, for example, is stuffed with minced pork, pine nuts, and spices, then baked in small clay pots, entirely authentic to elite Roman dining, entirely unnecessary in your personal opinion. But tonight is not about your opinion. You verify that the dormice appears at the appropriate moment, not before lighter fare. Sequence implies mastery. Disorder implies decline. Have you ever seen someone serve dessert before the main course because they just felt like it? In Rome, that impulse could echo socially for months. Meat follows, roasted fowl perhaps, or cuts of pork glazed with honey and herbs. The aroma thickens in the air. Oil lamps flicker slightly as servants pass. Guests lean forward, conversation punctuated by appreciative murmurs. You listen for tone. Approval is soft and steady. Displeasure is quieter but sharper. A raised eyebrow, a dish left half-eaten. You track these signals like a seasoned diplomat. Dessert brings honey cakes and fresh fruit and nuts. Sweetness to conclude the arc. Roman cuisine favors bold contrasts, sweet with savory, spice layered atop richness. It is not bland, it is deliberate. You motion subtly for water to be refreshed, so wine to be diluted slightly more at this stage. Heavy food and strong drinks are a volatile combination. In the kitchen, a small mishap. A sauce thickens too quickly. You intervene calmly, instructing dilution, correction, composure. Panic spreads faster than steam. You do not allow it to settle. As the final dishes circulate, you take in the scene. Guests reclined, plates largely empty, conversation humming at a comfortable volume. No one appears poisoned, no one appears scandalized. Success. Food in Rome is more than sustenance. It is proof of wealth, access to trade, command over resources. Each course demonstrates reach, from coastal fisheries to distant provinces. You exhale quietly. The dormice arrived on time. Society remains intact, for now. Clothing is another battlefield. Elite Roman men wear togas for formal occasions, cumbersome lengths of wool requiring assistance to drape correctly. Women of status appear in stoles with intricate hairstyles pinned into architectural feats. Your quiet duty is ensuring the event aligns with expectations of decorum. Too extravagant, and it screams decadence. Too modest, and it whispers decline. You walk a narrow marble path between taste and excess. You pause near the entrance as the first guests arrive, and immediately the wool begins. The toga is not a casual garment. It is a large, semicircular expanse of fabric, wrapped, folded, and balanced with precision. It signals citizenship, rank, and respectability. It also weighs enough to make casual movement a strategic exercise. You watch one senator adjust his drape 3 times before crossing the threshold, as if preparing for battle. In a sense, he is. Have you ever worn something slightly too formal and spent the entire evening aware of your sleeves? Now imagine the sleeves are your entire identity. The quality of the wool matters. Bright white indicates recent cleaning and bleaching. Subtle purple edging signals high office. Anything too flamboyant risks accusation of vanity. Anything too plain suggests financial strain. There is no comfortable middle, only careful calibration. You scan discreetly. One guest's toga is expertly arranged, the sinus fold falling in clean lines. Another's is slightly uneven. You make a mental note to position the uneven one on a couch with less direct lamplight. Shadows are merciful. Women arrive in stoles layered over tunics, fabric flowing in controlled elegance. Their hair is sculpted into elaborate styles, braids, coils, carefully pinned arrangements sometimes supported by false hairpieces. Roman fashion, especially among elites, favors structure. Even softness is engineered. Jewelry glints softly. Gold earrings, bracelets, rings, enough to signify status, not enough to appear ostentatious. The line between tasteful and excessive is invisible, but universally understood. You have already briefed the household attendants. Oil lamps adjusted to flatter, not expose. Harsh light reveals too much. Soft light forgives small imperfections. You are not simply managing logistics, you are curating perception. Have you ever attended an event where the lighting made everyone look mildly unwell? You refuse to let that be tonight's legacy. Then there is posture. Reclining in a toga requires subtle athleticism. Fabric must remain arranged even while leaning on one elbow. A careless shift can unravel the entire composition. You observe quietly as guests settle onto couches, ensuring no dramatic wardrobe malfunctions occur. You offer assistance with the smooth neutrality of someone adjusting a cushion, not rescuing a statesman from textile disaster. The host himself must strike the correct balance. His toga must appear pristine, but not newly purchased for the occasion. His jewelry restrained. His grooming is impeccable. Excess suggests insecurity. Understatement suggests confidence. Social optics in Rome are relentless. Too much luxury at a banquet can invite whispers of moral decay. Too little can suggest declining fortunes. During the late Republic, especially, public virtue was constantly scrutinized. Elite Romans cultivate an image of gravitas, seriousness, dignity, even while enjoying elaborate feasts. You adjust a decorative garland near the doorway, fresh but not extravagant, decorative but not theatrical. Have you ever tried to look effortlessly put together while internally calculating every detail? That is Rome. As more guests arrive, the room becomes a tapestry of wool, gold, and carefully arranged hair. Conversation begins softly, each person acutely aware of how they are perceived, and you stand just outside the spotlight, observing the collective choreography. No one comments on the lighting. No one tugs too anxiously at their drapes. No one appears either impoverished or indulgent beyond reason. The marble path between taste and excess remains intact, for tonight at least, since dignity has been successfully accessorized. As wine flows, so does information. Banquets were hubs of rumor and alliance building. Deals were implied between bites of roasted lamb. Marriages were floated between ships. You circulate discreetly, listening. Your job is not just logistics, but awareness. Who laughed too loudly at Caesar's name? Who left early? Who drank water instead of wine? These details matter tomorrow. You move along the perimeter of the triclinium like a quiet shadow with excellent hearing. Conversation at first is polite. Grain shipments, road repairs, a passing mention of military campaigns in distant provinces. Nothing sharp, nothing revealing. But as the craters empty and refill, voices soften and edges blur. You lean slightly near the central couch as wine is poured. A senator remarks that certain generals are becoming ambitious. The word hangs in the air. Ambitious can mean capable. It can also mean dangerous. The tone matters more than the word. Have you ever listened to someone say interesting and tried to decode whether it meant admiration or impending betrayal? Rome functions on that level of nuance. A poet begins praising the host's generosity, subtly weaving in references to loyalty and legacy. Flattery is rarely accidental. It is an investment. You note which guests nod in approval and which stare into their cups. Across the room, two equestrians lean closer together, their voices lower. trade routes, shipping contracts, the price of Egyptian grain. You do not interrupt, you simply register proximity. Alliances often begin as shared complaints about tariffs. Then there is laughter. So one guest laughs perhaps a fraction too enthusiastically at a mild joke about a prominent political figure. It is not scandalous, but it is noticeable. Excessive laughter can signal allegiance or mockery. You file it away. You observe drink choices as well. Most accept the diluted wine without hesitation. One man consistently requests additional water. Caution, piety, distrust? A sober mind remembers more. That too is a kind of power. Have you ever attended a gathering where one person remains entirely clear-headed while others drift into sentimentality? That person leaves with more information than anyone else. You circulate toward the peristyle garden as a small group steps out for air. The night has cooled. Oil lamps flicker against columns. Here, conversation turns personal. A daughter approaching marriageable age. A son seeking advancement. Names are mentioned. Possibilities weighed. In Rome, marriage is strategy wrapped in ceremony. A casual mention tonight may solidify into negotiation tomorrow. Back inside, the host leans toward his most honored guest. Their discussion is quiet but intense. You do not hear every word, but you note body language. Relaxed shoulders, measured nods, no visible tension. That suggests progress. Servants move through with trays of fruit and honey cakes. Their presence provides natural breaks in conversation. People pause, reflect, adjust tone. You track departures as well. One guest excuses himself earlier than expected. Illness? Offense? Another lingers past the final course, speaking earnestly with the host. Extended presence implies interest. Gossip in Rome does not travel randomly. It moves through baths, forums, and markets, and porticos with precision. By tomorrow afternoon, fragments of tonight will circulate. Your awareness allows the host to anticipate that circulation. You do not interfere, you do not comment, you simply observe. Have you ever realized, halfway through a conversation, that someone in the room knows far more than they are revealing? That is you. As the final cups are drained and conversation settles into softer tones, you take a mental inventory. No open insults, no visible fractures, several subtle alignments. The evening was not merely entertained, it has recalibrated relationships. Wine fades, lamps dim, but the information gathered tonight will shape decisions in daylight. In Rome, currency is minted in silver, and in whispers. Eventually, the oil lamps burn low. Guests depart, some dignified, some needing assistance. Now comes the quieter labor. You inventory amphorae, count silverware, assess broken cups. Roman households maintained strict accounting. Enslaved staff clean the triclinium, scrubbing away evidence of indulgence. You draft mental notes. Next time, fewer oysters. Definitely fewer poets. The house exhales. The laughter that filled the room hours ago has dissolved into the cool night air. Sandals have scuffed the mosaic. Cushions sag slightly where ambition once reclined. The scent of garum and spiced wine lingers faintly, like a memory you are not sure you enjoyed. You step into the triclinium with a small oil lamp and a tablet. First, the amphorae, one empty, two nearly so, the reserve barely touched. Good. That means your dilution strategy worked. Yet no one attempted to duel a statue. No one declared himself consul of the furniture. You nod once and mark the tally. Have you ever cleaned up after a gathering and tried to reconstruct the evening based on the debris? Half-full glasses tell stories, so do overturned cups. You crouch to inspect a fallen goblet near the far couch. Cracked, but salvageable. You make a note for the steward. Silverware is counted carefully. Forks do not exist in this era, but spoons and knives do, and they are not inexpensive. Loss suggests carelessness. Carelessness suggests weakness. The enslaved staff move quietly around you, sweeping crumbs, wiping tables, folding linens. Their efficiency is practiced, almost rhythmic. The mosaic floor regains its composure under steady scrubbing. The room returns to dignity. In Roman elite households are meticulous in record keeping. Expenses must align with display. You tally food consumption mentally. Oysters adequate. Lentils are popular. Dormice mostly consumed, which you choose to interpret as success rather than curiosity. And the poet. He lingered. He recited longer than advised. You recall a moment where one guest's eyes glazed slightly. Not disastrous, but next time you will request brevity more firmly. Have you ever hosted someone who treats just a quick toast as an invitation for an autobiography? Rome has those too. You step into the atrium. Early dawn light filters through the compluvium, landing softly in the impluvium below. The water is still, calm, in contrast to last night's subtle turbulence. Now comes damage control. You review the guest list in your mind and replay interactions. No overt arguments, no sharp exits. One senator left early, citing fatigue, genuine or strategic. You will discreetly inquire later through mutual acquaintances. You send a trusted servant with small tokens, perhaps leftover delicacies or polite messages, to certain guests' homes by midday. Gratitude reinforces goodwill. In Rome, follow-up is as important as the event itself. Accounting extends beyond objects. It includes reputation. You consider the host's performance, gracious, measured, engaged without dominating. He will likely receive favorable commentary in the baths tomorrow. That is the true measure of success. You walk once more through the triclinium, cushions restored, tables cleared, lamps extinguished. It looks as though nothing extraordinary occurred, which is precisely the goal. Have you ever admired a seamless event without realizing the quiet labor that followed? The wiping, counting, calculating? That is your domain. You scratch final notes into the wax tablet. Wine consumption is optimal. Entertainment balanced. Seating successfully. One goblet was damaged. No alliances fractured, at least visibly. The house settles fully now. Soon, the host will rise and prepare for the forum, carrying the subtle glow of a successful evening. He will receive nods, perhaps invitations in return. And you? You will begin preparing for the next gathering. Because in Rome, indulgence is temporary, but logistics never sleep. The day after a gathering, whispers travel faster than chariots. A successful banquet enhances the host's dignitas, his public prestige. A poorly managed one undermines it. Rome thrives on perception. Your success is measured not in applause, but in the absence of scandal. If no one writes a satire about it, you've done your job. You rise early because reputation does not sleep in. By mid-morning, the forum will hum with trade, debate, and subtle character assessments disguised as casual conversation. Men who reclined comfortably on your cushions last night will now stand in sandals on stone, discussing grain, taxes, and each other. You cannot attend every exchange, but you understand the pattern. Praise in Rome is rarely direct. It appears as a comparison. A refined evening, someone might say, meaning superior to another's, or well organized, which translates loosely to no one being embarrassed themselves. These are victories. Have you ever scanned social media the morning after an event, searching for unflattering photos or cryptic comments? Imagine doing that without the internet, only bathhouses. The baths are where verdicts are softened into steam. Conversations there drift between politics and personal critique. A misplaced seating arrangement might resurface as an anecdote. Overly strong wine could become a cautionary tale, so you act preemptively. You dispatch polite follow-up messages, brief notes expressing gratitude for attendance. A small gift, perhaps leftover delicacies or a jar of quality oil, sent discreetly to the most influential guests. It reinforces goodwill and, more importantly, frames the narrative. The evening was generous, harmonious, intentional. In Rome, perception is curated through repetition. You also consult informally with allies. A friendly equestrian may mention offhandedly that the music was tasteful. A poet might promise a flattering line in his next recitation. Subtle amplification. Damage control, when needed, is equally subtle. If someone hinted at tension, you address it quietly. A personal visit, a clarification, perhaps an invitation to a smaller, more focused gathering. Rome forgives quickly when attention is paid. You consider the host's performance again. Did he laugh appropriately? Engage widely? Avoid monopolizing the conversation? Elite Roman masculinity prizes gravitas, seriousness, and composure. Too much levity appears frivolous. Too much intensity appears rigid. Last night, he balanced well. Still, balance must be reinforced. You advise him gently during breakfast. Mention who seemed particularly receptive, who might require reassurance. Your tone is calm, analytical. You are less a party planner, more a strategic advisor with a wine inventory. Have you ever realized that your reputation depends as much on what didn't happen as what did? No scandal, no public insult, no unfortunate poetry. Silence can be triumph. As the day progresses, reports filter back indirectly. A nod in the forum, a cordial greeting from a rival. No raised eyebrows in the basilica. These are your metrics. Rome's republic is fragile in this era. Alliances shifting, ambitions rising. Social gatherings serve as informal negotiations. A well-managed banquet signals stability, competence, and control. You review your mental checklist. No satirical verses circulating. No exaggerated retellings of overindulgence. No complaints about seating. You allow yourself a small exhale. By evening, the city's attention will drift to new matters. A speech, a rumor, a military dispatch. The banquet will settle into memory as pleasant. That word in Rome is gold. You stand at the edge of the atrium and watch light spill into the impluvium. The house appears calm, almost indifferent to the invisible calculations it hosted. Reputation, like wine, must be diluted carefully. Too strong and it overwhelms. Too weak and it fades. Last night it held its shape, and in the Republic, that is enough. At its core, your work sustains networks of power. Elite Roman society revolved around patronage, loyalty, and carefully staged generosity. Feasts reinforced hierarchy and community simultaneously. Beneath the reclining couches and diluted wine lies a system of influence that shapes the Republic itself. You are not merely orchestrating pleasure, you are arranging the subtle machinery of the empire, one cushion at a time. It may look like excess from a distance: marble floors, imported wine, honeyed desserts, and lyre music drifting into the evening air. But the banquet is not random indulgence. It is infrastructure. In Rome, power does not exist only in the Senate chamber. It circulates through homes, through dining rooms, through conversations held while reclining at an angle that suggests relaxation but demands vigilance. And you think back to the guest list. Every invitation was a thread, every seating placement a stitch. Patronage binds Rome together. Wealthy elites sponsor careers, legal defenses, and public works. In return, they receive loyalty, votes, and protection. The banquet is where these exchanges are softened into ritual. Have you ever realized that the most important decisions in your life were made over dinner, not in a boardroom? Rome understood that centuries ago. Generosity is performative but necessary. When the host provides lavish food and fine wine, he signals capability, stability, the ability to provide. That signal strengthens his standing among peers and clients alike. Enslaved attendants move efficiently, reinforcing the image of an ordered household. Order in the home reflects order in leadership. You supervise all of it quietly. The flow of courses, the smooth transitions in conversation, the absence of visible conflict. These are not luxuries, they are messages. Even the act of reclining communicates hierarchy. The most honored guest was placed centrally, others arranged with care. Everyone is aware of their position. Rome thrives on clear rank. Ambiguity breeds unrest. The wine, diluted and rationed, becomes symbolic as well. Controlled abundance, measured indulgence, excess without collapse. It mirrors the Republic itself, powerful but ideally restrained. Have you noticed how often societies confuse spectacle with strength? Rome prefers choreography. You also consider the clients, those of lower rank who attend occasionally at the edge of such gatherings. For them, the banquet reinforces connection to influence. Proximity to power matters. To be seen within these walls is to be acknowledged within the network. It is easy to reduce all of this to decadence, but decadence without structure disintegrates quickly. Roman elites understood this. Even during periods of moral critique, the banquet remained central to political and social life. It was not merely pleasure, it was a strategy in soft lighting. You, standing at the margin of the triclinium, are a quiet engineer. You adjust cushions, but you also adjust egos. You moderate wine, but you also moderate tempers. You time entertainment, but you also time opportunity. Each small decision ripples outward. A conversation fostered here may influence a vote weeks later. A marriage suggested here may realign families for decades, and yet tomorrow, no one will speak of you. They will speak of the host's elegance, the quality of the Valerian, the agreeable tone of the evening. Your work disappears into the background like the foundation beneath a column. Take a slow breath. The lamps are flickering. Shadows stretch across the mosaic as the final servants extinguish the wicks. The house returns to stillness, as if nothing significant occurred. But something did. Connections strengthened, reputations preserved, ambitions gently nudged forward. And tomorrow, there's another banquet to plan. The lamps are out now. The triclinium is quiet. The cushions are plumped back into perfect obedience. The amphorae stand empty but dignified, like veterans of a very polite war. Somewhere in the city, a senator is snoring softly, confident that he navigated the evening with grace. Somewhere else, a poet is replaying his own performance and deciding it deserved more applause. And you survived another night in the delicate ecosystem of the Roman Republic. Tonight, you measured wine like a chemist of human behavior. You arranged couches like a general positioning troops. You timed oysters, dormice, and dessert, with the precision of someone who understands that civilization itself hangs by a thread of garum-scented order. No one applauded you, no laurel wreath was placed gently upon your head, but no one stormed out, and no one declared a vendetta over seating arrangements. No satirical poem is currently being drafted about a tragically misplaced senator. That is success. And as absurd as it all seems, grown adults reclining on couches, debating the empire while trying not to spill diluted wine, it worked. These rituals of food and music and careful generosity kept a sprawling republic stitched together. Not perfectly, not forever, but long enough to matter. So tonight, as you lie in your very non-Roman bed, with climate control instead of a courtyard breeze, with clean sheets instead of wool draped in complex geometry, consider the quiet labor behind every comfortable moment. Someone, somewhere, is always arranging the cushions. History is not only battles and speeches, it is also menus, guest lists, lighting adjustments, and the subtle art of making powerful people feel properly placed. The Roman world was loud, ambitious, competitive, and often ruthless, but it was also organized, meticulously, and gently ridiculous. So let your breathing slow. Imagine the faint trickle of a fountain in an open atrium, the distant echo of sandals on stone, the soft murmur of conversation fading into night. The empire can manage itself until morning. You've done enough for one day. Sleep well. Okay, good night,